It kind of seems like 140 minimal garage infused dubstep is popping off at the moment, led by artists like Hamdi. There's like a big resurgence of it on UKF dubstep as well.
I'm perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And weirdly, I'd never really made it before, so what I did, listen to a bunch of it obviously, and then pulled apart the different elements and tips and tricks, and then I made my own kind of 140 minimal dubstep drop. This is what I came up with, and I'll share a bunch of tips and tricks what I learned creating this. So first of all, the drums, very tight and technical. They're not enormous drums, they don't carry a lot of reverb as well. They're very like punctual and deliberate, just punching through the mix. And if you should notice something straight away, probably through my head going, yeah! It's the swung kind of garage element that really makes the drums just stand out. So if you're like me and don't really like sequencing in MIDI for drums, rather do it on the timeline and use audio files. There's a little quick hack in order to make your drums swing. For example, we'll take this hi-hat which we have down here. Normally it would just be... Where's the groove in that? If you hit Command and 3 on your keyboard, it changes your grid to triplets grid. So what you want to do is zoom in on that again. For example, this is just one beat. And we will trim the second and fourth and drag them out to the next point. This swings out the second and fourth 16ths of this beat. Way more swingy then. And so if you carry that theme throughout your entire drums and your drop, kicks included, if you zoom out that gets a better grid, like 1, 2, 3, halfway, 1, 2, 3. It's just so swingy. So definitely remember that, the swing element for the drum, slash everything else in the track. Layering in the drums, kick, very tight sound. Snare, there's a few layers here. Kind of borderline rim shot sound, if I do say so myself. I was gonna go for a clap, but I didn't quite make that work. Like an 808 kind of conventional clap, but I thought rim shot-esque snare, that would sound quite cool. And of course this lands on the third beat per every bar. Next element, obviously gonna have your offbeat hi-hat on the second and fourth in between the snares. Essential if you want the extra head bop, because check this real quick. It's kind of groovy. You want the overpronounced hi-hat to really let the listeners know when to push the head up for the head bop. And of course swung hi-hats bringing the groove and the energy. Very high end, no low end at all. Simple on every beat. And then a few percussion sounds scattered throughout. Definitely make sure these are swung as well using your triplets grid. All together, a little bit of saturation as well. Next up is vocal. You typically want a phrase that you can repeat every single beat. This is going to be echoed and just reverb in the background, and I kind of achieved this with a few effects here. EQ, obviously no bass, we don't want any bass, this is just going to be sitting on the top end. And a little bit of a notch there. Spectral time, I just literally grabbed a random preset from Spectral time and then adjusted that to fit. So, brings in a metallic-y sound that just automates up. Thought it was quite a cool effect. Auto pan, spreading it left and right, and then reverb to finish off. Bring in the echo, bring in the metallic sound. And that little vocal repetition is good for two things. Foreground kind of thing to keep you locked in, and as well as providing some background noise to help fill out that frequency spectrum. Next up is kind of my own little flair that I incorporated here. It is like percussions and effect sounds. Heavily swung as well. Just make sure Command 3 or Control 3 for that triplets grid, and you can line them up perfectly. I just thought it needed something extra in between the first snare hit to kind of just propel it along in a way. Scratches as well. Add a little bit of the background noise. Anyway, let's get into the bass. Processing, as you can see, 2 side chains. We don't really need to dive into that. A little bit of erosion to give the noise. and of course saturated. But we're here for the actual serum preset, and you'll be surprised, it is very basic. I started off with the sine wave and basic shapes, went to the wavetable editor and introduced a few more harmonics there. So you can go, I kind of like that. Interesting. So that kind of worked for me. This little pitch automation, really easy in Serum to set up. New LFO, create this little kind of ramped sound. Envelope, head over to the matrix, then link LFO to the master tune, which you find under global, and then just pull this out a bit. Shit, is out LFO. And you have a little bit of a pitch envelope that spikes here and then reverts back to the normal kind of pitch. Yeah, and I also wanted to create a wub, but I was so lazy, I didn't want to duplicate Serum and then just have the second one for the wub. I was like, you know what, I'm going to turn on the filter for the parts I want to wub, and yeah, we'll go from there. First note comes through uninterrupted, second note, wub wub. And I'm not even sure that's like a very clean pitch, it's just... I kind of like that sound, so I went with it. And saw wave on top of it, just no bass whatsoever, just wanted extra kind of sound to come through. Moving on to the main bass, the wow. Very similar to the first Serum, I think I did start with that patch actually. Same saturator. And that is most of it. Another pitch envelope that's linked from LFO1 to master tune. Little pitch hack, distortion as well, but the main character comes from this OS B. FM from A this time, not FM from B. Another saw wave, just pitched 3 octaves above oscillator A. And this was really cool. I'll turn off filter for a second. It provided some really interesting kind of sounds with really interesting tones for the bass, and of course linking that to a filter with LFO on the cutoff and resonance. Yeah, that's where you get the wub from. I figured around the sweet spot with the FM gave it that really authentic kind of garagey, minimal dubstep sound. So yeah, was loving that, and then of course a top layer. Top layer was exactly the same preset, but with some interesting distortion from Raw. Capitalizing on that mid side. See, this was the very focused mono sub bass. We wanted a wide layer on top of that, so I went hard with the side distortion. And then of course, absolutely no bass because our original patch is doing that. And these two together. A little bit rough around the edges, but subby. Like that whole kind of sub bass, low bass area is just being pushed. And composition wise, what I figured really works well is just have like a really simple repeating pattern. And deviate one semitone up or down occasionally. So you could switch it up here as well. I actually prefer that better, so we're going to keep that as is. And then a cheeky switch up for the second where the punchy bass goes ham. But we have our wide top layer. That note's way too low. But that works. We really wanted this effect to sound like a sub bass that's just working overtime and barely keeping up with the bass, so I reckon that was quite a cool little effect to do. And briefly going back to the composition, I think what worked really well is like one bass introduced at the start, and then as soon as the snare comes in, you switch up the bass and introduce something entirely different. So that's where I came up with this little idea to just snare, switch back. Of course, these bass notes are swung as well. With the groove tool as well, very handy. I like the swing 16th 66. Enough swing to it. Works really well for all MIDI. And this bass switch up is very easily transitioned through these effects as well, so without. Kind kind of. We need like a transitionary sound to just like let the listeners know we're switching it up. And then tying that all together with the swung garage inspired technical drums, echoey vocal with processing, random percussions that's very swung, simple bass with some basic FM, make sure they're punchy, make sure they swing, and layered to really fill out the frequency spectrum. And all that combined together. It's actually been a while since I've done a free download with one of these Ableton projects for a tutorial, so I'll check this project file, top link in the comments, 24 hours only. If you quit, you can grab it. Alright, see you guys later, peace.